A woman to me, like, one thing I think about women is relational. Women are just so good at like having friends and just getting together with friends and talking with each other and just expressing themselves and talking about their feelings. Like men often have a hard time doing that with either men or women.
When I think of women, women I know seem to me to be more personable, both with each other and with men. They're easier to relate to, and they talk about themselves. They're more ready to talk about themselves and to talk about personal issues than men do. But I also see that they can be much more critical of each other than men typically.
A woman to me is someone who is strong, brave, courageous, who isn't afraid to take risks, because as a woman in our society we have a lot of things on our shoulders and a lot of hurdles we have to overcome.
Okay, for the good, I would say you guys are usually very tough and resilient, emotionally and physically. And then maybe for the bad, I would maybe focus on your self-confidence a little more. Society likes to try to knock you guys down, but you should always be focused on the good parts rather than the bad.
Okay, characteristics of a woman. Some words that come to mind would be strong. I think women have to be very strong in our society, strong-minded, strong-willed, strong in their organization. I think women today have to be nurturing. They have to be the organizer, the entrepreneur. I think they have to be adventurous, creative.
I think there are no specific characteristics of a woman. I think if someone says they are a woman, that they are a woman, and there's nothing else that we need to define them as.
Women and men, I think, aren't what I was taught they were when I was growing up. You know, sort of two kinds of people who had different rules for dressing and behavior and things they could do. Okay. So for example, one of the things I sort of figured out early was that as a woman, I had very few career choices. I could be a secretary or a teacher or a housewife. And I vehemently didn't want to be any of those things. My father took me to a men's chorus concert from his college, had a touring men's choir. Thought he would take me. I was probably about 7. And they were wonderful. They were great. I said, Daddy, I want to join that group. He said, you can't. I said, but I want to go to that college. You can't. It was men's college, men's group. And I ran into that a lot of times as I was growing up, until I got to college. College was weird for a while. My experience in college surprised me a lot because the men were very predatory. You know, how can we get you? Why would you want, what, do you really want to talk to me? No, not particularly, they didn't. It was a function of being 18 in the mid-60s.
Some characteristics of women that when I think of in terms of, I think compassionate, very good listeners, like to connect with lots of people and try to work as a group, networking, hardworking, sacrifice, you know, as I think of moms and working moms and so on. So those would be the characteristics that I think of.
So I think women should be, characteristics of a woman, I think a woman should be nurturing, but like, I mean, she should be able to have people come up and talk to her. I think women should also be strong and should be able to hold other people up. I think women should also be humble, and women should be courageous and virtuous. Those are the characteristics I think women should have.
I believe characteristics of a woman involve being caring, kind, hardworking, and motivating.
So growing up, the women in my life, I was raised with 3 older brothers, so my mom was kind of like the only woman that I kind of had to look up to. So she was like your stereotypical woman, like she did all the cooking, all the cleaning, kind of like took care of the kids and everything. We lived on a farm, so like dad did all the farm work while mom was in the house, like taking care of the kids. So that's kind of like what I think of as a woman, but she also taught me like how to be independent and strong and how to like do things on my own without needing the help of a male.
Good? Oh, okay. I would have to say that a woman, at least in my life, they've been strong, independent, sometimes beautiful from the inside. My mom, I was raised by a single mom, so I have a lot of respect for women. I know it's different for the rest of society.
Okay, the word feminism, when I hear that, I think unfortunately in most places that word takes a derogatory term, but I think when I hear that word, personally, I think of it as being willing to step out into places that women are not, willing to be bold, and willing to take risk, and not knowing what's on the other side, I think would be what feminism is. Okay.
Feminism to me just has to do with like equal rights for women who for many years, for a long time, have not had the full privileges that men have had in society. So feminism is just a movement to help just level the playing field a little bit more.
In some cases I feel like society just kind of, not blows it out of proportion, but society kind of takes the aspect of like, oh, feminism, it's people's pushing like ridiculous ideas of how women should act, or they're over portraying their bodies, or they think that, you know, kind of self-centered, not self-centered, but strong women that are capable of voicing out their opinions, they're feminists because they're speaking too much of the truth, or they're pushing ideas upon other people. But I don't think that's really the case. I think it's just a way of people kind of explaining how like women are, or just ideas of like women in society.
Feminism, I sometimes think of women's rights, but sometimes they can be a little pushy. You know, there are the stereotypical ones, like the bra burners and things like that, but for the most part I believe it's just like the forwarding of women's rights.
So feminism seems to me to be a movement that started with trying to bring equality between the sexes, but eventually snowballed into something now that wants to prove women's superiority over men.
When I think of the word feminism, I think an intentional act to try to make sure women are treated equally.
I think that feminism is more or less women trying to get equal rights, kind of like equal pay, and just that kind of thing, so that they're equal to men, and more or less proving that they're the strong and independent type, and not just the submissive and weak that they sometimes are characterized by.
For me, in that context, feminism was described as believing that the genders and sexes should be equal in whatever they do. And I didn't really question that too much, because she asked the class who were feminists, and only like a couple people were bold enough to raise their hands in that situation. And then she asked, well, who believes that women should have equal rights as men? All the hands go up. She's like, well, congratulations, you're all feminists. So that was definitely my first exposure, and I've really carried that with me for as long as I've been in college and now grad school.
I think feminism is when people view women and men as equal, but in like the literal sense or in the real world, I don't think feminism really happens. We're still like at the stage where we still have like men have better rights or better like views to things as women do have. So yeah.
I believe that feminism is women and men having equal rights, whether it's
politically, socially, or economically.
Okay, feminism was introduced to me when I was about 20, 21, and it took about 10 minutes for these slightly older women, they were probably in their late 20s, who'd been living with it for several years, and they introduced me to the idea that I was not crazy. It was that simple. Because I didn't want the traditional careers. I didn't understand the kind of behavior that was expected of me, particularly by men. I didn't know how to grow up. I had no idea how I, Susan, could be a woman, because none of the women I knew who were adults, like my mother's age, were doing the kind of thing I wanted to do, or were people that I could emulate. It was that simple. So then I learned there were alternatives, and oh, what a relief. Oh, what a relief. Mm-hmm. And then there was a struggle, and I was already involved in things like the anti-war movement and social justice stuff. So including women in that and moving women into that was like, all right, let's do it.
It seems to me that at Bluffton, in regards to feminism, we get a lot of different ideas. I think about professors. We have professors far on the liberal side of feminism, and professors on the conservative side of feminism, and across the spectrum, and also with our guest speakers and other guests that come in. I feel like we get a broad range. Most of the time, though, we get people who are in the middle, who like to speak about feminism without really supporting it or denying it.
Okay, do I think that Bluffton University is well informed about feminism? And I think overall the answer would be yes. I think just the fact that we try to include that into a lot of our courses, obviously Civic Engagement Day, forums, and I think the fact that we are approaching a minor in women's studies, I think shows that Bluffton is trying to approach this issue and learn more about it.
I think the Bluffton University community is really uneducated about the word feminism. I think many people believe that it's an extreme, that it's women are better than men are awful people, not the equality aspect that what it is.
I think Bluffton University provides good opportunities for people to be well informed in like some classes, like Issues in Modern America and other classes, but I'm not sure exactly if all the professors who teach those classes do follow that certain like curriculum that goes over gender. So some people might be better informed than other people, but I think generally there is like a good sense of like gender roles, and now I hope that people know that like gender roles are fluid and changing.
I mean, I think at Bluffton University, kind of the issue of feminism has been thought about in different circles, and in other circles not as much. And I think we could learn more. We had a great forum speaker a few weeks ago, Hannah Heinziger, who just helped us really understand just the essence of what feminism is in terms of equality. And I think that was really helpful for all who were there. And I hope we have more opportunities for that to happen in the future, because I think we haven't really talked about it as much as we probably could.
I also think it needs to be kind of incorporated in more classes. I know like some professors, they love like debates. They like different points of views. They like points of views from different genders, different races, different religions, just different aspects of people's society. But I think there's some classes or some individuals that are still kind of afraid to open it up for people to argue about, or not even argue, but just even discuss, become more aware of, and be able to talk it out amongst your peers and your professors and even just individuals out in our society. I think it's still kind of like tiptoed around because we're afraid of offending people, and there are some cases where it can get a little offensive, but just being able to talk about it in a very professional environment, or being able to take other people's opinions in with still being respectful from other people's ideas, still kind of needs to be incorporated into our daily lives and daily conversation, or even in classes that we don't expect it from.
So
Bluffton does a good job of like bringing about good topics that are important in society, but I don't think students are very engaged in learning about those topics.
I think Bluffton, especially this year with the theme being gender, is doing a pretty good job of trying to get students engaged in discussions about women's equality and gender. But at the same time, I've only ever really been in one class that's discussed such issues, and like if I didn't take that class, I don't know if I would have ever learned. So I think maybe we can do a better job of trying to get everybody to talk about it in, you know, classes that everyone has to take. That might spread the awareness a little more.
But I can specifically think of my Issues in Modern America, my Issues in Modern America class with Matt Friesen. We definitely covered gender equality and how everybody should be treated equal, not just men and like race and that sort of thing, but we also talked about how women are typically underpaid, and we don't quite have that equality yet, and it'll still be several years before we do. And we actually covered the topic of 77 cents to the dollar, which is a topic about how women are still underpaid in their jobs and not treated equally in the workplace. And it really opened my eyes, and I think that it was unique that we covered it because I never had learned about it in previous classes.
I do not believe that Bluffton University is overall well informed about the topic. I think over the last couple of years, they've done a better job of educating us as students or as a student body on the topic of feminism and what it really is. But I think if you contacted a few people just out of a random class and asked them what feminist is, they would still give you the general view of what society has labeled them as, which is someone who doesn't wear a bra or doesn't shave their armpits, or someone who doesn't keep themselves up that well because they want women to be in power of everything. But that's not what it really is. So if we change that view among the entire student body, then I think we can fight towards the right direction.
Do I think that Bluffton University is well informed on the topic of feminism? I mean, for the most part, yes. It is kind of political, and I know being Mennonite University, you kind of shy away from those kind of topics. But there's not very many classes I've taken as a junior on that specific topic. Right now in our issues class we are discussing it, but other than that, I think Bluffton allows students the freedom of exploration, and so if students don't want to explore feminism, I guess they really don't. And so for the most part, I say that all college students have a general idea of it.